Across the span of human history, perception has been our compass, eyes harvesting light, ears gathering vibration, skin sampling pressure, temperature, pain. Yet one realm has remained secluded, the hidden interior of another mind. Today we embark upon a speculative odyssey. What if at this very moment, the barrier dissolved? What if every private reflection, every half-formed question, every flash of memory or desire around you became instantly audible, clear as birdsong at dawn? For the next 4,000 words we shall trace the biological, psychological, and civilizational fallout of universal mind-hearing. No heroes stride our stage, only the collective hum of thinking beings, observed as though by an unseen naturalist narrating a planet newly revealed. Neuroscientists liken thought to an orchestra, each cortical region contributing its motif, frontal lobes conducting intention, temporal lobes recalling melody, the limbic system lacing emotion beneath. In standard biology, electrical murmurs stay caged inside the neural jungle, escaping only through speech, gesture, or art. That privacy has fostered everything from philosophy to mischief. Now imagine an abrupt mutation, or an engineered nano interface, that broadcasts these bioelectric patterns into airborne phons, sound waves. Every synaptic fire transposes into faint whispers. Each chain of inference becomes audible plain text. The silent continent acquires rivers, valleys, and villages of articulate noise. The first sensation would be saturation. Standing on a subway platform, one would hear not the clatter of steel but the cacophony of interior monologue. Commuters rehearsing presentations, composing grocery lists, cursing delays, remembering childhood beaches. Untrained brains would drown in data, like staring at the sun of cognition without eyelids. Physiology rebels against such onslaught. The auditory cortex, hitherto processing perhaps a dozen voices amid bustle, now faces thousands. Neural gating circuits, tuned for cocktail party separation, collapse in fatigue. Early adopters experience vertigo, nausea, and synesthetic flickers as phrases crowd into overlapping timbers. Yet the brain is an engineer. Within weeks, synapses sprout. Inhibitory neurons learn to prioritize, just as polyglots sort languages or musicians parse overlapping harmonies. Humans begin to layer thoughts by proximity, volume, or emotional salience. A mother automatically singles out her child's cogitations in a schoolyard. A surgeon discerns an anesthetized patient's flicker of fear beneath operating theater murmurs. Cognitive psychologists label the process selective ideation. Filtering, it arrives with side effects, attention spans shorten, daydreaming retreats, and traditional sleep phases fragment as ambient dream texts echo through paper-thin apartment walls. Legislators convene is an unspoken thought, once audible, protected speech. Can a courtroom admit heard guilt? Privacy scholars invoke the Fourth Amendment, arguing that forced listening equals unreasonable search. Others counter the sound is naturally emitted, like a loud radio. Courts split hairs, louder than conversational level is public. Subdued mutterings, though discernible by trained listeners, remain private. Corporations race to patent muffled tech, headbands emitting phase, canceling counterwaves to cloak cognition, analogous to noise, canceling headphones in reverse. Soon cafes post placards, kindly activate dampeners to ensure a pleasant experience for all patrons. Marketers thrive in harvested intent. A passerby thinks Himalayan vacation, and billboards bloom with trekking gear before the conscious plan has gelled. Regulators scramble. Consumer protection agencies declare real-time thought, scraping unlawful without opt-in tags. Encrypted headcaps enter fashion, sleek carbon, weave shells, akin to minimalist crowns, shielding internal dialogue for a monthly subscription. The advertising arms race founders on backlash. Consumers file cognitive spam complaints, suing brands for assaulting psyche with algorithmic anticipation. Eventually, an equilibrium. Broad demographic trends may guide product placement, but unique inner monologues become off-limits, unless voluntarily broadcast as stream statuses in social feeds. International summits transform. Negotiators once parsed body language to deduce sincerity. Now raw motives resonate in the chamber air. Deceit becomes near impossible, though self-delusion survives. A statesman convinced of benevolence may still cloak ulterior outcomes. Paradoxically, vulnerability accelerates détente. Centuries of rhetorical camouflage give way to frank admissions of interest. Border disputes settle faster, Yet, ideological chasms sometimes widen. For each faction hears the unfiltered disdain of the other. The United Nations inaugurates the Thought Abatement Protocol, mandating cognitive quiet zones where delegates might regroup without alien static. Children broadcast unabashed streams counting ants, wondering why the sky tastes like blue, planning midnight cookie heists. Parents bask in pure access, no more guessing tantrum triggers, yet they mourn the vanishing magic of discovery through conversation. Educators, gifted with pre-answer glimpses, tailor lessons to gaps before hands rise. Standardized testing dissolves, evaluation occurs in real time. As teachers witness concept crystallization, yet self-regulation emerges as a curricular pillar. Students learn cognitive discretion, the mental equivalent of whispering. Homework comprises breathing exercises, mindfulness drills, and visualization of thought bubbles drawn tight to the skull. Success becomes not only knowing but knowing how to shield knowing. Poets once chiseled metaphors to hint at private terrains. Now with internal lyrics acoustically available, what is left to reveal? Art pivots toward orchestration of collective thought. Composers arrange audience cognition into spatial soundscapes, projecting synchronized emotional arcs through stadiums. Galleries host silent symphonies, where visitors wander among sculptures that prompt evocative mind loops. The building thrums with chorus. Meanwhile, fiction writing mutates. Authors embed intention gaps, instructing readers to supply interior motives aloud, intertwining the printed narrative with a dynamic mental soundtrack. Critics debate authenticity. Has the author abdicated craft or invited the ultimate co-creation? Criminality shifts in silhouette. Violent impulses betray themselves seconds before knives flash, allowing potential victims to flee. Yet new gray zones emerge. Planning theft is not theft. Authorities cannot arrest for seditious daydreams lest society regress to Orwellian pre-crime. Investigators adopt consensual echo analysis. Suspects voluntarily share 24-hour thought logs to establish alibis. Defense lawyers fret, coerced consent may hide within social pressure. The Supreme Court weighs and rules. Cognition remains inviolable. Only voluntarily vocalized mental streams are admissible, and only when recorded with encryption preventing third-party duplication. Psychiatrists anticipate collapse of traditional therapy. If doctor hears every patient rumination, boundaries blur. Instead, resonant attunement evolves. Clinician and patient don synchronized dampeners, gradually dialing permeability to explore trauma at tolerable volumes. Cognitive behavioral exercises. Incorporate counter-chorus reframing, where supportive peers project positive affirmations to drown self-criticism. Yet ambient despair becomes communal. Anxiety rises as individuals sponge each other's worries. Public health bodies deploy hush gardens, parks lined with mycelium, infused absorptive panels, and whispering bamboo, granting reprieve from neuronal drizzle. Meditation burgeons, not as exotic retreat but civic necessity. Courtship, previously a dance of inference, stands transformed. Attraction sparks flare audibly. She's luminous, he smells like cedar. Rejection is immediate yet gentle, uncertainty replaced by crisp boundaries. The age-old question, what is he thinking, becomes rhetorical nostalgia. Some mourn the demise of flirtatious suspense. Others praise the honesty. Long-term partnerships flourish where pairs master joint filters, modulating internal chatter into private channels. Marital spats shorten, grudges cannot stew unheard. Infidelity, nearly impossible to conceal, plummets, yet so does the thrill of secrecy, an evolutionary reward once tethered to reproductive strategy. Places of worship resound with layered prayer, each supplication weaving into polyphonic psalmody. Mystics propose that collective mental resonance may itself constitute divinity, the word made literal. Skeptics counter that gods, if extant, must now tolerate constant petition. Confession loses monopoly. Absolution becomes communal as faithful hear penitent hearts. Yet spiritual life complicates. Doubts ring as loudly as devotion. Congregations must embrace heterodoxy or fracture. Some sects adopt meditative silence to honor the whisper of the ineffable, maintaining that true revelation thrives only in the spaces between words. Urban density generates thunderous ideation. By contrast, remote forests offer acoustic respite. Ecotourism surges among neuro-nomads seeking pockets where only birds and their own cerebrations sing. Rangers issue permits controlling visitor quotas to preserve the fragile hush. Wildlife, unaffected by human concept chatter, reclaims suburban greenways as city dwellers retreat indoors behind dampeners. Ethologists discover that some songbirds modulate tunes in response to human thought frequency bands, possibly exploiting new acoustic niches. Nature, adaptive as ever, folds our mental presence into its symphony. Universal audition accelerates linguistic evolution. Slang once traveled by dialogue. Now memes leap directly from neurons, condensing into compressed icon bursts, glyph waves, experienced as synesthetic color, pops. Older generations struggle. Younger brains wield them effortlessly, conveying complex stories in milliseconds. Ironically, spoken speech becomes an act of courtesy, a curated highlight reel for those unable to parse raw glyph waves. Libraries add thought archives, indexed recordings of seminal discoveries captured at birth, Einstein-level epiphanies preserved in first-person electricity. Yet scholars warn of thought erosion. Without need to verbalize, ideas may remain in fuzzy prelingual states, hampering rigorous analysis. Universities thus reinstate rhetoric courses, teaching translation from pure cognition into structured argument. If attention is currency, thought audibility inflates supply. Every passerby now competes for ears not just with speech but with raw ideation. Startups market attention vaults, cloud servers, storing overflow cognition for later retrieval. People lease mental space the way farmers store surplus grain. Critics cry foul: does outsourcing memory erode identity? Neurophilosophers reply that selfhood has always been distributed. Between neurons, diaries, loved ones, the vault is merely an external hippocampus. Still, legislation mandates stringent consent protocols. To hack a vault would be to hijack a life. Some nations outlaw thought broadcast, forcing citizens to wear permanent dampeners. Smugglers run whisper routes, exfiltrating refugees yearning for mental freedom. Conversely, open speech countries tout transparency as a pillar of democracy, boasting lower corruption given audible bribery schemes. Espionage, paradoxically, revives. Operatives master Zen blanks, meditators capable of zero-content mind states, slipping undetected across cognition checkpoints. Counterintelligence trains echo trackers, sensitive to micro-ripples that betray concealed emptiness, proving that even silence can shout. Collaborative research accelerates. In particle physics labs, clusters of physicists interlink dampeners on low-gain mode, forming hive minds able to integrate datasets in parallel. Breakthroughs in fusion and oncology crystallize years ahead of schedule, yet reproducibility crises multiply as labs captured fleeting eureka moments without written methodology. Journals now require cognographic supplements, mind recordings alongside papers, to document reasoning pathways. Peer reviewers wade through terabytes of cerebral chatter, verifying that insights arose from data, not wishful leaps. Inevitably, subcultures celebrate opacity. Mute art exhibits canvases painted in sensory deprivation tanks, where artists purge all thought, leaving only muscle memory. Concert halls tour performances by monks projecting zero mental volume. The audience sits in profound hush, confronting inner dialogues once masked by societal din. Black market thought jammers flood electronics bazaars, bracelets, emitting bursts of stochastic cognition, scrambling local ambience. City councils outlaw them after accidents spike. A driver enveloped in jammer fog slams into a cafe, unable to separate his reflexes from fabricated mental noise. Biologists speculate on future hominids. Selection pressures may favor those with finer filters, larger prefrontal cortices to parse constant input, or conversely, minimal broadcast amplitude conserving privacy. Over millennia, humanity could diverge into louds and mutes, one branch thriving on collective processing, the other safeguarding solitude. Alternatively, technological augmentation may outpace DNA. Brain-computer interfaces embed encryption keys, letting individuals toggle transmission, completing the circle from unintended broadcast to willful telepathy. In that era, thought sharing becomes elective, a tool rather than inevitability. From silent skulls to panoramic mindscapes, our hypothetical journey charts exhilaration and peril alike. The gift of hearing every thought unlocks empathy at planetary scale, yet demands unprecedented discipline. In the grand ledger of evolution, consciousness was a whisper in darkness. Now it risks becoming a stadium roar. Perhaps the lesson is balance, privacy and communion, introspection and expression. Hush and harmony, each vital note in the biodiverse soundscape of cognition. Should the veil ever lift, may we remember that wisdom lies not merely in hearing, but in choosing when to listen, when to answer, and when to let another's secret remain a sacred hush beneath the beating wings of thought. Until that speculative dawn, cherish both the words you speak and the thoughts you keep, each a pulse in the intricate, still partly silent symphony that is humankind.